So rabbis, you know, a lot of rabbis, you know, before in the West, they're very, very into the power of blogging. It's much different than the East. In the East, it's like blogger's a dirty word, but in the West, they're 20 years ahead of the East in the West. They're very, you know, they're not ignorant towards blogging and towards the power and towards the good that can come out of it. They're just, in the East, they look at these things as like, oh, they're writing things against the Gedolim, they're evil. In the West, they're like, well, they could be bringing a lot of good. Everything, every tool and everything could be used to good. So a lot of rabbis, before I even come to shul, they're like, no, I'm coming. My host will tell them, and they'll be like, almost like, so, you know, they'll show me around. It's like almost like they want me to write about them. And it's like, it's hard because I want to write this like totally objective thing, but like when they know, it's much harder. Like today I went to B'nai David and no one recognized me. There was only one person there there were two people there I knew. One of them doesn't really know about my blog because we know each other from back in the day, and the other person is a fellow blogger, so it doesn't matter. She's not so connected to the shul. So I can probably make a very, very honest post about it. It's good. I really liked the shul. I mean, it's incredibly boring. I felt like I walked into Queens, but like very friendly and very cool. And all, you know, and people who don't go there were like, oh, you'll like it. It's like left wing. And I'm like, what? Like the women get the Torah, it's left wing? That's not left wing. You know, like it was actually pretty centrist for me. But and then someone's like, oh, I love the myths of halacha. Oh, the women can't hold the Torah because they're nida. And I asked my host. My host is a incredibly learned fellow who has smicha from Gateshead, who's very frum. And he's like, that's a big myth if I've ever heard one. If women can't hold the Torah, we can't hold the Torah. Everyone's tameh. You know, that's ridiculous. He's like, they don't like women holding the Torah. That's a different story. But to say they can't halachically is like just but he has a lot of rayas against, in general, the establishment. He says they don't make gedolim like they used to. He's like, in fact, they don't even make gedolim anymore. But so, I don't know where I was going. I'm all over the place here.
Have you ever been tested for ADHD?
As a kid, they diagnosed me with a learning disability. This was when it was popular, like in the late 80s, early 90s. And my father was like, well, I'm not putting it on drugs, so I never really, I don't know if I've ADD, because I can sit down and read a book for 4 hours. You know, like if I'm interested in the person or the topic or what I'm doing, I mean, I can walk in the woods by myself without saying a word for 12 hours straight. And I can drive without listening to music and just without anything and, just concentrate on the task at hand. So I think ADD is one of my things I say when I'm trying to be facetious about my just, head up in the clouds, but I don't know if I'm really ADD or not.
I was asking you about the ways rabbis react to you, so anything else?
I've never really had such a harsh reaction in personal, it's not as like people aren't, I don't go up to people and say who I am, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I used to do that. And when I was young, when I was getting into it, people who had just started reading me already were like, oh, he's a Chil Hashem, he's whatever. Now it's much more established. So now that they're like, well, the OU hired him to do a show, or this shul hired him to do a show, or, someone from the RCA asked me I might speak at the convention this year. That's in the DL, but it's out there now. About disenfranchised modern Orthodox Jews. I think once you gain a little legitimacy and mainstream publications write about you and people look at your stuff, it's different than when you're up and coming. So nowadays, I never really, say anything. I mean, I've definitely had some rabbis say they really liked me. There was a rabbi in Cleveland who was, totally, of a pretty major shul that was totally into what I was doing. And, when I did a show in Silver Spring and, there's definitely been the rabbi of the Karlbach shul is kind of a fan and, and so I think, I don't know. I would be interested to sit down with a round table of rabbis to see what the thoughts were. What time is it, by the way? Oh, so okay. I have a meetup in Nagila Pizza.
Have a sip of water.
Okay. Okay. So it's filtered, by the way, so there's no bugs in it.
So, how enthused are you for blogging much of the time? Does it vary?
Oh yeah, it's been so up and down. I'm sure people can tell this by the fact that this past week I was not in the mood of blogging at all. I put up guest posts. Thursday was just one guest post. I was just the weather was so nice. I was totally I'm not blogging. It's 70 degrees outside. That's kind of but I mean these days it's also, I was trying to explain this to a fan and guest poster of mine, Ellie Fink. We had lunch on Friday. how it's true. Like, it's hard for me to write how I used to write because I'm not cynical about my Jewish community. I'm not, I like the Jews out there. In New York, the Jews are schmucks. It's a really shitty place to live as a Jew. It's a really not a good place. Everyone complains. No one ever complains in the Bay Area. In LA, no one complains. No one complains to me. I have never been at a meal where people talk bad about other people. No one talks Lashon Hara. There's no politics. I mean, it's like, what? I've never been, it's so different. And, that sort of like gets to you because my cynicism and my or my like, fringe self in like the New York area was always based on this like, like I walk in a shul with a blue shirt and everyone looks at me. And people tell me to get up from their seat, and no one gives me a siddur, no one tells me what a siddur is, and no one says Good Shabbos, but I don't have that experience anymore. So it's almost like, I have to go to other things. But in ways, like, I was already going that route of talking. People are like, I like the old Heshi. Like, great, read my old stuff. Like, I don't, I'm going to change. That's the natural ebb and flow, of an artist or of a writer. And it's like indie bands that become famous. That's what it is. Oh, they sold out. They didn't sell out. They started making music people liked. They changed their tone. Whatever. It's selling out. I don't know. But people are still reading it, and people like a mix of serious and non-serious. And if you read my stuff from the beginning, it was instead of me writing my struggles within Judaism and being honest about, my belief struggles and stuff, it was about outdoors. I mean, instead of like having that aspect, I mean, maybe like, it's always been like 50-50. 50% humor and 50% serious. It's always been like that. Just people like these very slapstick posts. And I'm almost like, I can't write like that. I'm not that. I'm almost like, I know I'm not mature, but I'm a little too mature for that. It's like I can't do it in certain ways. Although I like writing about sex stuff. That's good. It pushes people's buttons. But,
how old are you now?
29. Yeah. I look younger, though.
How do you feel about that?
It feels good, man. Holy crap. I can't believe I'm 29. It's like, I feel like I'm 22. I think I'm forever stuck at 22. So, I mean, it's going good. I got this car I like. I got weather I like. I'm living in a good place. I got people I like. I have a career. I never thought I would find a career. That's really the most important. Not being paycheck to paycheck is a real pleasure. I'm a sort of paycheck to paycheck, but like, figuring out what you want to do is probably, figuring out what I wanted to do is probably like, it's been the biggest change, because now in the next step of like, where can I go next? It used to be like, I'll do this job because I want money to go skiing, not because I like it. So every other job I've ever held has been like, well, I'm in this because I can tell people I do this, or it's always been about this like sort of conscious image of like, oh, like girls aren't going to like me if I just am like this, so I have to do this. I remember when in my young 20s I was like that. And now I'm like, like other people who are like, Heshi, shidduchim, and cook. It's not such a chush of a job. You don't make a lot of money. I'm like, whatever, man. I'm having a great time. I'm having a ball. It's fun. It directly affects how people. It makes people happy, right? It's such nachas, to cook for people for Shabbos, even to like bring my skills from the kitchen into people's homes and to be able to, just share that. It's just such a. I mean, like, no offense to the accountants, they're not really like, there's no like joy in a lot of there's no like direct human interaction in a lot of these, I mean, they're like, it's like, I don't know, I'm not going to incriminate myself, I'm not going to dig a hole, but whatever. I like working with food, I like making people happy.
How long do you tend to live in San Francisco Bay Area?
I don't know, as long as I'm learning something from the kitchen. I mean, there's a couple, there aren't that many restaurants that are kosher in the U.S. that I'm interested in working at. And in the West, there's one, and I'll keep that name anonymous, but there's one restaurant that I would like to work at on the West Coast. In New York, probably Mike's Bistro and Pardes are probably the only restaurants I've seen that have a creative menu and have something that isn't schlocky, like Prime Grill. I would never work. I really would like to refrain from working at a restaurant that is a steakhouse and a sushi place, unless it's specifically Japanese. And if it's specifically Japanese, then they get into a lot of issues with a meat and fish place. But I like originality.